Hello and welcome to a video from filmsbychris.com. That's Chris with a K. I'm Chris with a K. There's a link in the description of my website. I recommend you go there. Today we're going to do some real-world web scraping, right? So I've been going over a series on web scraping, and I've done examples on web pages I've made, but now we're going to go to a real web page. I have a buddy who's been taking a class, been helping him with flashcards and stuff, and there's this website called Quizlet. People submit questions and flashcard stuff, and they can generate tests and stuff here, but let's say you want to just dump that information for your own use in your own script. That's what we're going to do today. So we're at Quizlet. Let's go ahead and just search for a test. I'm just going to say history, right? We're going to just look at what they have for history. I'm just going to pick any one of these. I'll just pick the first one. So here we go. We have a flashcard here that we can click on and it will flip. So we have the question, and then we can flip here and get the answer, and then we can go to the next one, flip it, we can go back. So let's go ahead and see what happens if we just try to grab this page with wget. If I go wget and I try to grab that page, we're going to get an error, right? Forbidden. They don't want you web scraping it, right? Let's also try the same thing with curl, okay? Well, we got some information, but is it the information we need? Let's go ahead and pipe that into grep, and we can see right here that we have Franklin D. Roosevelt. So let's go ahead and just search for Franklin, right? We got no results, which means it's not showing the information from that page. Now, my first thought would be to open this up, just like we've talked about before. Go to the network tab. I'm sorry, open this up. I should have said F12. Open up your developer's console, either F12 or you can right click and say inspect element. It will bring you to here, and then you can click on network, right? At this point, we're going to refresh the page. And first thing I would look at is fetch XHR, right? And we can go through here and see if we can find the questions in a JSON format, which would be nice. It'd be the simplest way to do it. There's some JSON in here, but it's not the questions. I've already looked. I've looked through all the different other files. So let's have a look at this. Let's look at, if we hit Control U, it opens up the HTML for the page. And this is the HTML before JavaScript is run. So some web pages are dynamic and it will load things. If you do Control U, it's going to show the static page before JavaScript runs. In the developer console, you can see real time what has been generated. We can already see right here Franklin, but let's go ahead, Control C to copy that, Control F to search, and we can see that it appears 34 times. So it is in the HTML. So when we're running our wget command here, or our curl get command, it is not getting we're not getting that 403 error, but we can probably dump that output into an HTML, and it's probably giving us a message saying you're not allowed to be doing what you're doing. Let's go ahead, hit F12, open up this developer console again. So what are we going to do? Let's go ahead and with the developer console open, click all and under network, and then hit F5 to refresh, right? And we'll scroll up. We will right click on the first option here. We'll go down to copy. We can copy the URL. We already have that. Copy as, and we have a few different options here. We're going to say as curl. Now that we've copied that, we can come to our shell here and Control-Shift-V to paste. We are pasting a curl command, and if we do that, it gives us some information. Let's go ahead and do that, and then pipe that into grep and look for Franklin. Ha! It returns something. So we are pulling the proper information. Let's go ahead, paste that information, bring it into an editor here. And I've already gone through this. So lots of times a lot of this information doesn't matter for what you're looking for. These are all the headers that are being passed. So I'm going to get rid of a bunch of these. Cookies can be very useful, especially if you're logged in. But I can tell you right now with what we're doing, the cookie is not what's important. We can actually get rid of all of this. The only thing that's important here is the user agent. So the user agent is just telling the website what web browser you are. But the only way it knows what web browser you are is by passing it that information saying, hi, I'm this web browser. So when you're using curl or wget, you can tell it you're any web browser, and it's just gonna go, oh, okay, you're Chrome, you're Firefox, you're Brave, you're running on whatever system. Now, I will tell you, on a lot of websites, they'll block wget and curl, and you can actually just type gibberish as the user agent, and it will go through. This website, that didn't work. But it's okay, we have a workable user agent here. So we've knocked this down. This is on 2 lines, but it's really just one command. So if I run that again, you can see the command here, and I will hit enter. I know it looks kind of long because of the user agent, right? But if I was to grep for Frank, we get some output, which means that word Frank is on the output. So let's go ahead so we don't keep pinging the website. I'm just going to use our curl command here. Again, all this is curl our URL, and then a header saying this user agent that we are a Chrome browser. Technically, it was Brave that I was using, but it's passing this proper information. I'm going to say dash lowercase o, and I'll just say file.html. I will clear this out, and I will cat out that file. So file, and we will actually have to pipe it. I'll grep for Franklin again. So we dump that into that file. We have the information. Now we just need to find what we're looking for. So now I've actually already gone through this. I wrote a script that's on my system. Actually, it's in this folder. If I do flashcard dump, and I grab this URL, if I don't give it a URL, it's going to say new URL. If I put in gibberish, it's going to say invalid URL. If I pass it the URL, it's going to dump out the questions like this, followed by a pipe symbol and the answer. And it does that for all those flashcards. So that's the basics of what we're going to go over today. I can show you that script at the end, and there'll be a link to it in the description of the website. But now, let's go ahead and do this. So I'm gonna cat out the file that we have. And one thing is, lots of websites, the HTML isn't pretty. So first thing I want to do is they might have a bunch of tags all on one line. So we're going to pipe this into sed. And what am I going to do? I'm going to say, okay, find all less than symbols and say new line less than. That's going to break all our tags up on the new lines. And at that point, I can grep for Franklin, right? And I'll just go up a little bit. So there, as you can see in the web page, there's embedded a lot of JSON. So there might be information in here. Since we search for Franklin and this is coming up, I might be able to pull that JSON from the web page. It's loading like that rather than a separate file. But let's go ahead, run this command again. Whoops. We'll pipe it into less. So we'll start at the top. Less without an N. So we can start looking here and we can see Frank D. Okay, that's there. Let me go ahead and just do /Frank with a capital F. And there we go. Okay, it's highlighting for us. So this is the less command. And I'm looking through here, and I'm looking for something unique for these different tags. I could also do this on the website. But we have some meta stuff, meta. That may not be what we're looking for. We got some div tags here, but they don't really have anything unique like a class. But if we come down here, we can see which statement about Franklin. If we go back here and we flip back this over, which statement about Franklin? Okay, that's our question. It is in here a few times, different ways. But this one is a span tag with a class of term text. That gives us something that might be unique. So we're looking for like a class or an ID or some sort of attribute that we can pull from. So let's go ahead and instead of grepping for Franklin, we'll grep for term text. We're doing this case sensitive right now because that will narrow down our search. We'll do that. And hey, look at this. If we scroll up here, this looks like our questions and answers, right? So each line starts off with a tag, but we have which statement about Franklin D. Roosevelt, right? That's our question. And the next line says, number 2, social welfare programs. If we come back here, we see which statement about Franklin D. Roosevelt. Flip it over. Oh, number 2, social welfare program. Let's look at the next question. We'll go to the next flashcard. The federal deposit, the federal deposit insurance. Come down. Oh, look, that's the next question here. And then what's the answer on the other side? Increase the supply. We go down one more line. Increase the supply. Okay, so we have all our questions. All of them start off with this tag here. We could use that as our string to remove, but if I can go do now, I can say sed, and I'm actually going to copy. This is a sed command I use quite often, but I don't have memorized. I have to look it up every time. This is the sed command to remove tags. It did not work. Oh no, sorry, that's my one for the new lines. Let's go ahead and clear that. This is the command to clear tags. So note that down somewhere. Anytime you're working with HTML and you want to remove the tags, this is the command to do it. Now we have all our questions followed by the answers, and we're almost good. But you'll notice that there's things like this, right? What's that? And then down here, and then there's some parts where it might say quote is a common one. What we're looking at here, those are only 2 that I see. Usually there'll be more. There's another X27. I'm looking for more examples. There, the ampersand quote. This is HTML encoding. When the web page renders that, those actually show up as quotation marks. So how can we fix that so they don't show up as these strings with the ampersand, but actual quotation marks? And I don't know what that is. Let's go back to that. So if we flip this over, Franklin Roosevelt, that's probably an apostrophe. So that's the HTML encoding for an apostrophe right there. There's a program, may not be installed on your system by default, but you can install it from your repository. So on a Debian-based system, you can sudo apt recode. Okay, once that's installed, what we can do is pipe into recode, and we're going to say recode HTML ... ASCII. And that will re-encode, or actually decode, that HTML to plain ASCII. So we do that. Now we have our questions, and we have them without the exclamation mark tags, right? So we have actual exclamation marks and quotation marks, and question marks are probably one other one. So we are pretty good, but right now we have it lined up so we have a question, and then the next line is the answer. I want the answer to be at the end of the same line, just for formatting. I can do different things. In fact, I have a code that actually generates some HTML out of this. So this next command will be for this. So I'm going to run this, then I'm going to pipe that into this sed command. And again, there's links to all this in the description. I do not have this sed command memorized. I had to look up how do I append different things to even and odd lines using, I said bash, but it brought up a sed command. This is the command. It is basically looking through, and then it's going to print out this is backwards. This should say 1, 2. It's going to print the first line, pipe, second line. It's going to do that for each line. So now that I do that, if I scroll up here, we have the question followed by a pipe, and then the answer, and then a new line. So now the question and the answers are on the same lines. Of course, you can do lots of things with this. I can change that to have something like, instead of a pipe symbol, I can do a line break, and then after the next line, I can say horizontal, and then, so I do that, and now it's kind of HTML, right? So now I can pipe that into, I'll just say 1.html, and I can use xdg open because I'm using Xorg as my display manager, and we'll open up with whatever my default program is for viewing whatever file I pass it. So I do that. It's going to open up my web browser. This is what we just generated. We have our question, new line, answer. Question, new line, answer. And then they're divided by a horizontal line. So you can format this however you want, right? So we can put all this into a script. So again, I have this script. There'll be a link in the description. I'll walk you through this. So first thing, to save space on our commands further down, I'm setting user agent as a variable here. Then I have this. This is just a function that will that I can use when there's an error, right? So I check to make sure the user gives input. If they don't, then it uses that error command, prints URL needed, and exits. Then it checks, okay, if something was given, does it start with or can at least contain HTTP? If not, then say invalid URL and exit. If both those checks pass, we'll then set the variable URL to whatever the user passes the first variable. Then we run our curl command using those variables we just created, and we're putting all the output of that into a variable called dump. And then we're running all the stuff that we set before to narrow it all down. This is actually an older version of the code. This should say, I accidentally put things backwards, so I had to flip it with tack. But this is our command right here. I can now run that command. I can give it, like, again, if I give it gibberish, it's going to say invalid URL. We can come back here, and just to show you, it doesn't have to be this particular flashcard set. We can go to here. We can pick Spanish, right? And I am going to now grab that URL. I'll run our script. I'll pass it the URL. Depending on your shell, you may or may not need to put in quotations. It's always a good idea to put things in quotations. If I run that, we should get, there we go. We got the English word followed by the Spanish word, and that's what those flashcards are. Of course, you can do this with pretty much any flashcard set on this website. Some flashcards have pictures. I haven't even looked at that yet, but anything with text will work like this. And again, I actually have set to my system flashcard dump, and I can give it a URL such as this, and it will dump it. And this one actually outputs some HTML, which I have CSS to go along with that makes it look a little bit nicer, and then I can filter through the questions and answers. So yeah, again, quite a bit there. But again, this is a real world example. If they don't give you a JSON file, if it's static HTML, which again, some people think is better, and in some cases it might be, rather than having something dynamically load from a JSON file where I could just bypass the HTML, bypass any JavaScript, and just grab the JSON and go through that and have everything nicely formatted. You have to go through this, and it will be different for each page. But once you have it set up for a website, unless they change the way the website works, you have a script that will run. And we hit a little hurdle there that it was looking for a specific user agent. And again, anytime that you're trying to use a curl command or a wget command that doesn't work, again, always come in, open up your developer console, refresh the page, go to network, right click and say copy as curl, and you can paste that into here, and you can see the full curl command, and then start removing things till you figure out what you don't need. Of course, you could always leave it all in. It's not going to hurt, it just makes your command a little bit longer. Again, there's a link in the description to this. So this is the script we just looked over, so you can follow along if you're having trouble. Download this, make it executable, and then pass it a URL from Quizlet and see what happens. I do thank you for watching. Please visit filmsbychris.com. That's Chris with a K. There's a link in the description. As always, I hope that you have a great day.